Based on the title, you already know what we're going to do today, and I'm not going to lie. I'm super excited to be here to go through my entire bookshelf with you, but also I'm kind of intimidated. I'm a little bit scared of this video just because we have over 600 books now. Damn. I know that for a fact, and now the organization of this bookshelf is kind of all over the place. Initially, when I first did my room makeover earlier this year, we had a really great system. Each shelf had a specific genre and everything was really organized the way that I like, plus it added a little character because I put some of the things that I love around my books. But as the year continued to go on and we continued to buy new books, now it's just all over the place, and truthfully, there's more disorganization than there is organization, but we're going to try to get through everything, and I'm going to try to explain everything to you because there are a few shelves up here where they're like back to back. They're two shelves in. Like there's a row of books and then there's another row of books in front of them, and it's just chaos. I know for a fact we need new shelves. It's just I cannot fathom that right now. I don't know where I'm going to put it. My room is very small, and I just know that if I do this, it's going to be a whole new project for our room, and I want to do that right. I want to film that with you guys and really enjoy that process, but mentally, I just can't do it right now. So I want to go through everything, but first I do want to talk about my bookshelves in general because I do actually get a lot of questions about that. These shelves are the ones that literally everyone has. It's the Billy by IKEA, and I like them because they're super cost effective. They look really great and they come in a ton of different colors. Plus, because I live in an apartment and I know that I'm not going to be here forever, I just knew that I wanted solid shelves that I could depend on, not the ones that I'm going to invest in later on. I think when I finally figure out where I want to live throughout the world, because I do not want to live in America anymore, whenever I find out what country I want to live in and I settle down in a house or apartment or something that I keep for a while, I really do want to take the time to find some quality, high quality bookshelves. But for right now, this serves my purpose, and I'm tall enough to reach the highest thing. I feel good about these. So if you're trying to start a new bookshelf for yourself, or you're just looking for some dependable, cost effective ones, the Billy by IKEA, that's the way to go. Also, can I just say, this is my first time in my life, my 28 years of existence, where I've had a bookshelf like this. When I was younger, I was a voracious reader, but I did not have a bookshelf. I just had books randomly thrown throughout my entire room, and I love that aesthetic, but I knew that if I was going to continue this hobby, I would need a place to put them, but we moved too often for me to actually do that, and this just means so much to me, you have no idea. Now, before this bookshelf, we did have a smaller bookshelf. It was next to my loft bed. If you're new here, I used to have a loft bed here, and that one was my first ever bookshelf, period, and I loved that thing. I somehow crammed 400 books and that little bookshelf, and now we have over 600. I think if I had to estimate, I think we have about 650 books now as of August of 2025. So we're not too far away from having our own personal library, which is super exciting. But right now, that's where we're at. So we have a ton of books to go over. But again, these are the Billy by IKEA. And throughout my bookshelf, I have a few things that still show off my personality or the things that I care about. So I will be going through those, but I don't think that you care too much about those. I think you're really here for the books, which fair, I completely understand. But the angles are going to get weird as we start going through the shelf, so I just want to warn you in advance. Now, I think it's right that we start standing because these books are the ones that I can't reach while we're sitting on the floor. And also, this is the shelf that's pretty much the worst at this point. There's no type of organization whatsoever up here. There used to be on the row behind this, because there is a row of books behind this, there was some type of organization, but now it is just a lawless land up there. On the shelf, most of these books were just gifted to me, so these aren't books that I picked out on my own. Some type of publisher or company sent them to me, so I didn't pick these out, but I know some of them sound really good. Like these, I think they came out this year, and this edition is so cool. This is by the same author, The Measure in the Poppy Fields. I believe this is a series, if I'm not mistaken, and they're just so pretty. Look at the golden sprayed edges. They're so pretty, and this one's like this magenta, kind of like a more purpley color than magenta, but it's very, very pretty. Before we had too many books, this shelf was intended for like my self-care, my self-improvement, and my nonfiction books. So these are like the memoirs and things like that. So outside of this shelf that's in front of these books, that's exactly what you'll find. One of my all-time favorites is a memoir by Dolly Alderton. She is such an incredible writer, and the fact that this is not fiction, this is actually her life and the process she had to go through and the self-actualization she had to go through to really know what true love is actually so astounding. I fell in love with this book. I think by the end of it, I was in tears. It just felt like an older sister was walking you through life, holding your hand, giving you explanations about things that you didn't really understand, but from where your mind is at. So like she starts the book off when she's in middle school and she's talking about what she believed love is. And obviously it is a very skewed, very wrong idea of love, but we get to see her grow throughout the different phases in her life. And she makes some crazy mistakes, some insane mistakes. And sometimes you're like, girl, what are you doing? But over time, you get to walk through her growth with her. So by the end of the book, you feel like you accomplished something too. And it's just so heartfelt. And it's also very funny. There are a lot of times where she's talking about some heavy topics, but she gives it to you with humor. So you don't always feel like this heavy feeling, this sadness overcoming you as you're taking in the lessons of this book, because she also like balances it really well with her humor. And she's very witty. She's very funny. And on top of that, she also adds recipes in this book. And I think that, I say this all the time, but I think that every girl ever in life should read this book, because it is made for us by one of us, and it is something that has not left me. And I think I read this last year, and I still think about it very often. Every time I see it on my shelf, it makes me smile. And anytime I talk to a friend who's not really a reader, or definitely doesn't read memoirs, this is always one of the ones that I always recommend. But another one I always recommend is Educated by Tara Westover. This is a woman who has gone through so much. I cannot fathom someone going through what she went through. She is an ex-Mormon who grew up in like a people who like prepare for the end of the world. I don't know what the technical name is for it, but she grew up in a family where they were preparing for the end of the world. And not only were they those type of people, but they were also very religious. They were Mormon. And so the way that they treated her and women in general was just horrific. What she had to go through and then what she had to unlearn. And by the way, she did not go to high school, and yet she went to Harvard and all these incredible Ivy League schools. And she has so many accolades under her belt. It's actually astounding how she started from absolute zero and to the heights that she is now. And yes, it will break your heart. Yes, it's very uncomfortable, but it's one of those books where it's like, you need to learn and grow. You need to evolve. Growth is not something that usually happens in the comfort of your own genre. It's not a fluffy, light read. It's usually something that makes you feel a little prickly, a little uncomfortable. And this is when you know you're going to learn something that's going to stay with you for the rest of life. And this is hands down one of those books. I still think about this very, very often. And just her plight and what she had to go through and what she had to unlearn and then teach herself and then heal from within herself. She just went through so much in this book, and it's not even that big, but it really does pack a punch. Also, side note, we are not going to go through all of these books because we would literally be here all day. I just want to give you a highlight of the books that really transform me as a reader and the books that I think that you should read as a reader as well. Now, outside of that, for the rest of this shelf, I think the only other one that I would really recommend is Atomic Habits. I think that's just good for anybody, just basic life skills, as well as David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Now, I know that some people don't actually like his book because they think he's too like on the nose and too maybe masculine or whatever, but for me, as someone who's been through a very hard life, I think you need the hard love, the hard truth, and he doesn't want you to live the way that he lives. He says that explicitly so many times in this book. It's very hard for me to understand people who take that away from this book when he explicitly says it so many times. That's not what he wants from the book. I feel like when people do that, they're kind of intentionally not understanding what he's trying to say. But if you go in open-minded and try to listen to what he's saying and take the information or take what you think that would apply best for you in your life, I think you'll really find some value in this book. This is a book that changed my life. I've read it multiple times. I recommend it to people all the time. Also, a side note, the audiobook is literal gold for this book because they give you so much more backstory that you don't get within this book. And it's more like a podcast than it is an actual book because he talks about each chapter after he finishes something crazy. Not necessarily every chapter, but when something profound happens, he talks about it with you and just has like a normal conversation with you. So it feels like a podcast or like an interview, but then you get that extra detail, that extra bit of information, so you really truly do understand what he's trying to give you and where he's coming from. A lot of these books I have not read yet. They're just gifted to me. I honestly think we should do more book mail videos. I think that'd be really fun because I'm constantly getting books, but I open them immediately because I'm so impatient. But I think it'd be fun if I save them up with y'all and open them with you. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you would like me to do, because I think that'd be a really good idea. A notable book that was just sent to me is A City on Mars. Now, this is a book written by scientists who kind of dissect the question of if we should be living on a different planet, if we're just going to bring our problems that we have on Earth and the problems that we created here on Earth, like global warming, healthcare issues, discrimination, all of these things, doom scrolling, and if we're just going to bring it to another planet and never fixing our current issues, we're just spreading it across space. And so they question that and the ripple effects of a decision like this. It honestly sounds so good. This is a book that when I got it, I was like, wow, I genuinely want to read this. And it does have some type of illustrations in it as well. And it breaks down each chapter within a question. So I really like that too. And because this is from the perspective of a scientist, I feel like we get the full view of the repercussions of doing something like that, because I know though everyone is dead set on us doing that eventually, it's just like, what would that future look like? I don't think that we'll see it in our lifetime or even our children's lifetime, but still knowing that that is a possibility, what we would be leaving behind, what would be the ramifications of that, I think is really enlightening. And because I've always loved space, this is something that I definitely want to read very soon. Now, this is the other shelf on the other side here. Up here, this is some yarn and things like that because I wanted to learn how to knit and crochet. I have started and I was able to do a little bit of something. I think I made like a patchwork square and then just stopped. And it was down here when I had less books, but I had to move it because the books are slowly starting to accumulate and I have no space for anything. But that's what's up here now. And I really, really need to get to it. Somebody bully me into learning how to crochet. Please, for the love of God, somebody bully me. This is the only time where cyberbullying is okay. Now this shelf is kind of like this shelf, but it's a little bit more of like enlightenment, or that's what it was supposed to be when I initially started. But now, just like that one, these are just books that had no place to go. They're kind of a little homeless, and I just found a place up here because they looked cute. They kind of have the same height, and I just thought this would be a nice place to put them. Now over here, I still have a little bit of decoration, so I'm really happy about that. This back here is a stuffed animal I've had since I was a baby. Her name is Ellie the elephant, and she looks like she has been through a lot because she has been. I've literally taken her everywhere. And I don't know if y'all remember, but McDonald's used to give these out, and there was a woman that my mom knew who used to collect them, and she gave this to me when I was a kid, and I've just always had it. I also have a little plant back here because I felt like it needed some ambiance, something other than books, so I just put that here just for a little bit of greenery. And then the book that's on top of that is The Little Prince, this here. I love The Little Prince. This is one of my favorite classic books. This is written by a French author. It is just such a whimsical, beautiful story about love, self-discovery, and just what's important in life. And I feel like every single time I read it, I learn something new. Plus the illustrations in this book always kind of give me goosebumps. I fell in love with this book initially when I read Everything, Everything. I think I read that last year. I literally read it in a single sitting. That's the book that actually got me to fall in love with Nicola Yoon's romance books. And that book has like the coolest portraits, the coolest ideals, and it was the most intricate and unique book that I had ever read up until that point. Now, of course, I have read a little bit more and I have books that kind of rival that, but I still never forgot the memory that it left me with. And because of that, I started reading The Little Prince, and then I fell in love with this story because after I read the book, I watched the movies. There's a few movie reiterations, but there's one recently that I really liked, and the musical score is so good. The musical score is actually by the same person who made the musical score of Interstellar, and Interstellar is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my family's favorite movie for sure. And the musical score in that, I think, is the best ever made, period. Like, ever. Anytime I'm sad or scared or anything, or I have very big emotions, I listen to the Interstellar soundtrack. So there's a fun fact for you. Also on this shelf, these are like some self-care cards that I was given by, I think it was in a PR package. I don't know. It also came with this rock. I think it has some type of significance, but I don't know. It might be pink salt. I honestly have no idea. I just put it up here because it looks pretty. Also, if you see these little pumpkins around, I have them because I'm ready for fall. Again, yes, it's August, but me personally, in my heart, it's dead of November. It's 10 degrees outside, and so that's why I have these all over my shelf. The only other notable books up here that I'm excited to read is The Devil in the White City. This is a book that's based on a true story. It's based on the Chicago World Fair in 1893, and it's about the person who created the World Fair, so the architect, as well as someone who is parading as a doctor and is actually a murderer, and both of their worlds as they collide during this time. It is such an insane story, and this is one of my favorite books. This was also gifted to me, and I would have never read it otherwise, but this is such a cool story. I highly recommend it. Speaking of a cool story, then I also have a collection of short stories. This is called Never Whistle at Night. This is a collection of short stories written by Native Americans who talk about their legends and their folklore and give you those stories. Now, I usually do not like short stories just because I feel like you need more time than a few pages to really get to know a character, but this one I heard really, really great things about, and so I have a hope that this is something that's going to keep my attention through all of the stories. But I think another issue with short stories is the fact that you might really love one story and then hate the next. And I don't like that there's no continuity. I don't like that it's not seamless. I can't just say I love this book. I have to say, well, page 1 through 60 I really like. I didn't really like this much. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is going to challenge me and my thought process in that. And hopefully I like all of the stories in here. I just haven't started it yet. Then if we come back on this side has a little bit more organization than the last two, but still it's kind of getting a little muddy. This is my classic section, or my necessary reads, or my banned books. These are the ones that are super uncomfortable, but definitely books that we all need to be reading. And I recently got some new editions. So I got Beloved and The Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. These are two books that I read in high school when I was younger, and they broke me. I had never read books that were so vulgar and scary and just unnerving and made you really think about society and just the raw, ugly, honest truth in that way. And so they always stuck out with me because I liked how I felt after. I liked that I wanted to challenge myself in my thought process, and I liked that I wanted to be smarter than just the numbing that we all have, the TV, the Instagram, the social media, all of that stuff. I felt like with classics, it's almost like they pour cold water on you and force you to wake up and see what the world is and where it's going. So that's why I really fell in love with Toni Morrison, and I had to get the books again. So now I have both Beloved and Song of Solomon. The book that really scared me the most by her was The Bluest Eye. That book is hard. Very, very difficult to read. But if you're trying to get into Toni Morrison, I think I would recommend The Song of Solomon. This book is all over the place, but it shows her just impeccable writing skills. This is a book about Milkman. He is a man who is trying to learn how to fly, both metaphorically and literally, and you get to see him go through life, go through the hardships of being a Black person in America, especially during this time, and you just see his growth and development, and it's just whimsical, crazy, very uncanny. There's family struggles, there's family discourse, there's also self-growth and miscommunication and just self-discovery. There's so many things going on with this book, but it is one of those that like stay with you long after you've read it. Another one of my favorite classics that I read this year is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I have to warn you, this book is very hard, very uncomfortable, and very, very dark. It is about a woman who slowly loses her mind, and it's loosely related to Sylvia Plath herself. She did pass away before this book got the recognition that she deserves, and so it's really sad. And I think because of that, people really overlook the fact that this book is funny. She had great humor. It's very dark humor, yes, but humor nonetheless. And I felt like it was perfectly balanced with the hard topics that she had in this book that made me really enjoy it. But again, this is something where you have to go in knowing it is a very dark and heavy book. It talks about unaliving herself and not wanting to be here, kind of going mad, trying to find out what's the purpose in life anyway, if you can even trust your own thoughts, should she even try, all of these things. And you get to see her go through the very beginning of it, the height of her insanity, and then her getting out of it. And it's just, I personally thought it was a really beautiful story. I really, really enjoyed it. I also have Giovanni's Room here. I have not read this yet. I am about to start it. This is already in our August TBR, and I'm scared. I am scared because I heard that this one is a very, very hard one. But that's what this shelf is for. This shelf is for feeling the discomfort and going through it anyway so that you can get better on the other side. And this is about a young man in 1950s Paris. He is trying to figure out himself. He is an American, and he finds love and then tragic heartbreak, and you follow him throughout his self-discovery, throughout his own self-growth, and the impending doom of this heartbreak and what it does to him. Then over here, I do have a little chessboard because I want to learn how to play chess so bad. I think that's such a cool way to work your brain, to use your brain, to get off your phone, to be in the moment. And I have this really nice green one. I felt like it went with my room, and it's one of my favorite colors. And I have it placed on top of another few classics that I've already read. So this is The Stranger, Kindred. I actually haven't read this yet, by Octavia Butler. 1984, I read that this year. Oof, that one is scary and also very hard to read. I would recommend listening to the audiobook. The audiobook made that a lot easier to digest and really pick up on everything that he was trying to say. And then The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This is a book that I did read and I loved it. That was a 6-star read for me. I haven't read a lot of the books that you can see, but the ones that are under here, I've mainly read. So back here I have, I think this is Lord of the Flies, which I read. I have Animal Farm, which I read. Oh, I have Frankenstein back here. I loved Frankenstein. You know, they're actually coming out with a new Frankenstein by one of my favorite directors. His name is Guillermo del Toro. He's actually the one who made one of my favorite movies of all time. It is Pan's Labyrinth. That is a very dark, very gothic book, but with his movies, he does something that's really beautiful. He takes fairy tales, and you know how Disney kind of oversimplifies things and oversimplifies the fairy tales that were originally something that was actually really dark? Well, he likes the originals. He likes that they were dark and gruesome and gothic and uncanny, and so he shows that through his work. So Pan's Labyrinth has that eerie vibe, that uncanny vibe. It's very gruesome, it's very dark, but it's also still a fairy tale. It's still a beautiful story. I personally love it so much, and the fact that he is taking on one of the best classics ever, Frankenstein, makes me so excited to watch it. I literally cannot wait to watch it. I think it comes out this year on Netflix or next year. It's either this year or next year. I'm actually pretty sure it's this year. I think it's this fall. Don't quote me, but I think it's his fault. Then on the other side here, I have all of my sci-fi, and I'm quickly learning this year that sci-fi is one of my all-time favorite genres. I just love the space odyssey of it, just the futuristic vibe of it. The fact that we can learn so much, the fact that we can theorize so much is really, really cool to me. And I think that it's something where you can have untapped, unparalleled imagination, because the world is literally your oyster. You can be on any planet, you can make any type of planet. I just think it's so cool, and the space operas and odysseys that I've been reading about this year have just solidified that idea. So the Red Rising series, Project Hail Mary, Dark Matter, all of these books tie in something that I love, which is science, a great story, a great adventure, and just the what if of it all. Like, what could society look like? And I think that's just so cool, because there's an endless amount of ideas. There's so many things that could happen, but yet at the end of the day, we are still humans with the same bad habits, with the same patterns, and it's interesting to see how that would play out in a place like space. So this is definitely becoming one of my favorite shelves here. This does not belong here. This is not sci-fi whatsoever, but I loved it so much, and it just didn't fit on my fantasy section, but she deserved a spot here. So ignore Catabasis for a second, but let me explain these ones over here. So of course we have my favorite sci-fi series ever, which is Red Rising. I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to put you through it. I literally talk about this book every single time I pick up this camera now. I'm going to save you the trouble. If you haven't read it already, if you haven't heard me talk about it already, this series demands your attention. I am about to start Dark Age now. I do have the audiobook. I recently just bought it, and I want to listen to it in tandem with the book, because that has always been super helpful with me, because the names are so confusing and like the world is so complex. I need the pronunciation just so I can remember who is who and where they are in the timeline. One of the books I really enjoyed though was This Is How You Lose the Time War. This is one of those sci-fi books where you just need to go in blind. No one needs to tell you what it's about, because we can't even really tell you what it's about. It's just like nothing I've ever read, and I really liked it. It's an epic love story that traverses time and space and understanding, and it's just so beautiful. They write notes to each other back and forth throughout time, and they take on different forms as they go throughout time, and it's just really, really cool. That's about as much as I can tell you without spoiling it or confusing you, but this is one of those books where you just need to read it. You just need to read it, and it's either you're gonna love it and how weird and different and unique it is, or you're just gonna be like, what the hell was that? And no one can make that decision for you but you. So definitely read it. I also have Dark Matter up here, and that was a book that I read this year that I really, really enjoyed. It's about a scientist who wakes up randomly, has no idea where he is, where his family is, and he's in a completely different world where his life is completely different. He no longer has the same wife, he no longer has his son, but all of his career dreams have become actualized. And so he has to make the decision, will I stay in this world where I don't have my family or my loved ones, but I get the accolades that I've always wanted, or do I go back to my family? And though I'm not like the most amazing scientist in the world, I have my loved ones, and you get to see him battle that throughout that time. And it's a really great book. I really, really love that book. Another one on this shelf that I haven't read yet, but I'm excited to read, is The Ministry of Time. And it says, in the near future, a civil servant begins work on a highly confidential project. A government ministry is gathering expats from across history to discover whether time travel is feasible for the human body, but also for the fabric of space-time. She will act as a bridge, living with, assisting, and monitoring the expat known as 1847, or Commander Graham Gore, who, as far as history is concerned, died as Sir John Franklin's doomed 1845 expedition to the Arctic. But as the bridge acquaints Gore with modern concepts such as washing machines, Spotify, and the collapse of the British Empire, she finds herself falling fervently in love, with consequences that she could never have imagined. This just sounds so cool. Time travel, falling in love, history. I just feel like it has all the coolest concepts in this book, and I just cannot wait to read it. I've also heard great things about it. It has a Good Morning America Club sticker, and it also has the Barnes & Noble pick for the month or whatever at my local barn. So I know that they have really good taste. I just need to read that. Then here is just a shrine for R.F. Kuang. This is literally all of her books. So I have 2 copies of Catabasis. This is just because it's such a gorgeous copy. This was sent to me actually by her publisher, HarperCollins. So I have not touched it yet, but it is stunning. Absolutely stunning. It shows their magic system, the different layers of hell, and it's just really, really cool. And then you can see the detail here in the sprayed edges. Very, very fun. And this is the one that I actually read when we did the full vlog. So these are all my tabs, all of my favorite parts, and this is the advanced reader's copy. Guys, we're not even halfway done and I'm already tired of talking. There's so many books, and sometimes I just buy things because I'm like, wow, that cover is really pretty. I'm guilty of that. What can I say? So a lot of these books I haven't seen in a very long time, but they always transport me back to when we bought them. I'm like, oh, we bought them at Barnes during this time when I was doing this, and that. And I love that they have memories attached to them already, even though I haven't read a lot of these books. And it's really interesting to see what books I have read and I haven't, because I keep thinking I've read more than I've actually read. But then I look on my bookshelf and I have way more unread books than I have read books. And that just makes me feel so overwhelmed, but also excited because I can always fall into a new story at any time. I don't even have to go to the bookstore, which is something I need to remember so we stop spending so much money. Now, this is where things get convoluted once again, just because I have so many books back here as well as in front of here. So let me just explain what's back here. On this side, what's back here is the Twilight series. That is just a series from my childhood that I absolutely love. The books are garbage, yes, I'm aware, but it's for nostalgic purposes. I can't get rid of them. Then on top of them, I have yet another copy of Catabasis. What can I say? I'm obsessed. I will be giving these copies away eventually. I just haven't had the chance to. I think I'm either going to donate it to a little library or give it to a Goodwill or something like that, some type of thrift store. Then back here, I have the Fourth Wing series, just because the books were okay and the author is a bit problematic, and I just don't feel comfortable displaying those books on my shelf when I know that I have better books than them. So that's why she is banished towards the back. I haven't read the third book that I have, which is Onyx Storm, but it's back here, and I guess I'll get to it when I get to it. But here are my pride and joys. These are all the fantasy books that I'm either super excited to read, were gifted to me, or books that completely and utterly changed my life. And if you can tell, something is different here. Very recently, within the last month, I read Blood Over Brighthaven, and this book is fantasy, but it's really a mirage for what it is underneath, which is a political display of what's going on now in current America and current society in general. It talks about the abuse of religion, the abuse of political powers, corruption, self-identity, women in society and how we're treated. It goes over all of the heavy hitters in society that I could not believe she could fit this all in one book. This is not a series. This is a standalone book. If you didn't watch the vlog, please watch the vlog. But when my friends picked this book, Kinsey Books picked this book for me, and this is a book that was not on my radar. I had no plans on reading. I didn't even know about this book until she told me about it, and it completely changed my life. I literally was sobbing 20% of that video. Towards the end, it was literally the entire video. I could not stop crying because it was so beautiful. There were so many things that stood out to me, obviously, and I cannot recommend this enough. And before that, I had my baby here, which is the Six of Crows duology. I love that duology. I love Leigh Bardugo, but this book just recently beat it, and that's what I love about reading. You think that you've reached the pinnacle of what greatness is or what it can be, and then another book knocks the wind out of you, and then you find a new story that you can't help but fall in love with. And that doesn't take away the joy and the discovery and all the memories that I had with the Six of Crows duology. It's just this hit me a lot harder, and I can't bear to part with it. So that's why it's here front facing. Now, these other books here are also a part of series, but some of them are just standalone. So for example, we have the Legendborn series. I only have the first two books here. I haven't gotten the third book because these are paperback, obviously, and the other one is only currently out as a hardcover, and I just cannot do that. So, and I also don't like hardcover. I'm trying to like them a little bit more, but I think now at this point I'm kind of gaslighting myself into liking them, and I still don't really like them. So I think I'm going to stick to what I know, which is paperbacks. I like the paperbacks, and I can't finish this series without getting the other one in paperback. And the last one is Oathbound, and I heard that was really, really good as well. I only read the first one. We will be getting to this one, I think, next year, because I need to finish Red Rising and a few other books that are on my radar for this year. Then we also have Circe. I haven't read this yet, but I really want to get to it. Then I also have some fantasy books back here that I already read outside of the Six of Crows duology. So I also have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I also have her newest book, which is Bury Our Bones and the Midnight Soil. I'm actually currently reading this with my book club, and I'm halfway through the book at this point, and it is really, really good. I like her writing because it's very lyrical and very like descriptive and detailed. So she gives us a lot of imagery that I feel like completely puts me into the story. Plus I'm listening to this on audiobook, and the audiobook is fantastic. I think with the other one, if I'm not mistaken, I read the physical book, but I could be wrong. I think I might be wrong on that. But with this, it's about a bunch of sapphic vampires who are very, 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 very morally gray, don't really care about anyone. They're kind of a bit toxic, but you get to see them grow and evolve too. And you kind of understand why they are the way that they are because of the society and the world that they grew up in. And by the way, this book spans centuries, so it's different times, but it's like the same plights that women have to face time and time again in society. So it's very cool to see it from the perspective of a female vampire. I'm trying to keep Blood Over Brighthaven from jumping off my shelf. But with this, I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's really good because they have the accents of some of the characters. And so I feel like I'm completely in the story, and it's very interesting. The only bad part about listening to the audiobook is the fact that when I want to highlight something, I have to find it in the book because this isn't separated in characters. So in this one, it's kind of like this person died this year. Then you go through part 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and then you go to the next person. So there's no real chapters I can follow. Then I have to scour this book, try to figure out where I'm actually at. And it's been a pain in the butt, but there have been so many things that I wanted to highlight, underline, and just dog ear because I loved the quotes or loved the way that she explained something. V.E. Schwab is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors just because her imagery is so vivid and so detailed and lyrical that I've just never seen anything like it, and I genuinely enjoy the way that she writes. I also have a Brandon Sanderson book here. It is the first book in his Mistborn series. I have not gotten to it yet just because I'm still working on the series that I'm working on now, which is Red Rising. I just feel like I'm not a person who can read multiple series at a time because I'll just feel so overwhelmed, especially with fantasy series, because each series for a book is like 7 books and it's just too much. I can't possibly be in the middle of 2 different series that big. So I'm going to get to that one once I finish Red Rising. Then over here, these are books that were given to me. They were gifted. This is a new series, I believe. This Woven Kingdom, These Infinite Threads, and This Twisted Glory. Now this author is very well known for her Shatter Me series. That is not a series that I've read, but it's very popular on Book Talk, which makes me a little apprehensive. But objectively, I've heard a lot of people who I respect say that the series was good, so I'm going to give her a shot. Then over here I have Babel. I have not gotten to this yet, but because I like Catabasis, I think that I'm going to get to this before the end of the year because I think that the magic system is very similar to that one, if I'm not mistaken. Then I also have Night Circus. Still have not gotten to this. Everyone tells me, every time they see it on my bookshelf, they tell me I need to read that, and I just have not. I'm sorry. I'm going to get to it. It's like all these books, not enough time type of thing, you know? And then I have Dreadful. This is a book that I recently got. This is about a guy who wakes up as the villain, but he doesn't know how he got there. So he has to pretend like he knows what he's talking about so he doesn't die. And it's supposed to be very funny, very witty, very satirical. So I want to get to that this fall. Then the fantasy continues on this shelf. Now, I'm not going to lie. With this shelf, I don't necessarily care too much about the fantasy books here. 90% of these books were actually given to me, so they're not books that I picked. However, there are a few ones that I'm really, really interested in reading. One of those being A Discovery of Witches. This is a book we got so long ago. One of my favorite Barnes & Noble reps actually recommended it to me, and there's also a show on Netflix now. And this is about a girl who descends from witches, and she finds one of their manuscripts in the library, but she wants nothing to do with magic, so she banishes the book because she just wants to live her normal life. However, when that happens, it kind of causes a chain of events to occur that unleashes demons, witches, and all these other things. And one of those things being a guy witch who's very interested in that manuscript, and they slowly start to fall in love despite herself. And it's supposed to be a really cool epic fantasy adventure, and the way that she talked about it sorry and the way that she talked about it made me so excited to read it. So this is definitely one of these books on here that I do want to read. Another notable mention is this book here. I just love this book because the cover is so stunning. This was also gifted to me, but I cannot get over it. It's so gothic and beautiful. There's something about like a Tim Burton-esque book or art that really gets to me. I don't know what it is. I think that's why I like Coraline and a lot of things by T. Kingfisher. It's just the eerie, uncanny nature of their writing. I don't necessarily like horror, but I like gothic, and I think that is why I'm kind of drawn to this book and books like this because it's just so beautiful to me. I don't know, there's something about it that just feels so human and authentic. And I feel like I'm learning that as I continue to read more, that I don't necessarily like horror or thrillers per se, but I like something that makes me feel unnerved, uncanny, and this just gives me that feeling just based off the cover. Then I also just have some miscellaneous here. So I have a custom edition of The Red Queen. This is the first book in this series. I've never read it, but it looks really beautiful. I also have The Wren in the Holly Library. This was also gifted to me. I know that this is a romantasy and I've heard great things about it, just never got to it. This was also recently gifted to me. This is Broken Vows. This is a book that I think is a pretty popular series, but honestly, I'm not sure. I don't really keep up with what's trending on Book Talk, so I have no idea, to be honest, but it looks really beautiful. Also, speaking of book mail, I just got this in the mail yesterday and I completely forgot about it. It's perfect timing, but this is called Her Soul for a Crown, and it is a gorgeous Indian fantasy. Look at this cover. Like, how stunning. And you know what's funny? As I was getting this box, I realized they had already sent it to me. So I think we need to do an unhauling soon because I have so many duplicates of books. It's just really insane. It's just taking up prime real estate, so I need to get rid of them. But this one is one that I'm excited to read because it's also a romantasy, but it's about this girl who's trying to bring back to life her clan and her family. But in order to do that, she needs to climb up the ranks and work with a god to do so. And at first, she's really just focused on her goal. But as these things usually go, she starts to fall in love with this god as they continue to fight wars, both human and godly. So it sounds really interesting. The cover art is gorgeous, and I've never read a book that's laced with Indian culture like this, so I think I'm really excited to read this. I think if anything, I'll try to read it this fall or maybe next fall, just because I have so many books on my TBR for this fall. I don't think that we'll have time for it, but it's one of those books where I definitely want to try and make time for it. This shelf is actually one of my favorites. It's not necessarily because of the genre, it's just because there's so much of what I love on here. So obviously we have our 100,000 subscriber plaque. This means so much to me. Every time I see it, I have this immense amount of gratitude, and I almost get teary-eyed a little bit just because we worked so hard to get here. And I think a lot of the times in this type of career, you feel so overwhelmed or overlooked, and I think a lot of the times I forget how far we've actually come. So being able to see a tangible view of your accomplishments sometimes just brings you back down to life, back down to reality, and show you that you're doing better than you're feeling. So this means a lot to me that it's here. Outside of that, I do have my Enemies to Lovers candle. This is the candle that we got from Barnes, I think last year. I will never light it because this candle was $30, and I just think that's absurd. And I really just bought it because the cover is really cool, and I just think it's perfect for my romance genre, but it also smells really good. It has hints of vanilla orchid and jasmine, and it just smells so yum. I love it. I don't think I'll ever light it, ever. It's just really cute to have, and I can always get a whiff of it if I want to smell it. And then I also have some pictures of my friends that I met at Shelves in the City this year. This is Kinsey, and this is Sarah. You guys see them all the time, or hear me talk about them all the time if you're not new here, and I just love them so much. I love seeing our Polaroids around my bookshelf just because it gives me a little bit of joy throughout the day, and sometimes I miss them. We live like across the US, so I don't get to see them very often at all actually, but we talk every single day, so being able to see their faces just makes me happy. Then of course we got even more of those pumpkins I just put all over the place. And now my romance. As you can see, this is getting absolutely absurd. I have way too many books. So outside of these here, we have them stocked here all the way up to the top, plus all of these here, and now we're starting to put some in front of those. So it's getting bad. But you know what I'm realizing? As of right now, I'm really starting to stray away from romance just because I want to dig deeper. I want more, and I love romance as a palate cleanser now. That's kind of what I'm using that genre for. And not to say there's anything wrong with romance. It's just I realized before this, I was leaning too heavily in this genre and I wasn't exploring other things, learning other things. So I want to leave it for a little bit. If you love it, you can always come back to it. So I want to leave this genre for a little bit just so that I can learn, explore, and grow in other genres and other aspects of reading. So right now, this shelf isn't getting much love, but I still have so much love for it in my heart. Romance is the genre that really got me into reading when I was younger, so I will always have love for romance. And plus, I'm just a girl. Like, I love romance. I'm definitely a hopeless romantic, so it kind of gives me a little bit of hope that real love is out there as well. There's so many books on the shelf that I have yet to read too. It's actually pretty daunting. A few ones that I got recently is Happy Place. I like Emily Henry for the fact that she writes a lot of literary fiction and romance. Like, she blends the two genres. Again, the only one that I absolutely loved by her was Funny funny story. I did read Beach Read and Book Lovers and I didn't like those, but I heard that if I liked funny story, this one's really good, or this is one of her best books too, so I did get it for that reason. And then One Golden Summer is a book that is a standalone, but she also has a mention in her other book, which is Every Summer After, which I did read. I don't think I liked that one very much, but I heard this one is phenomenal. I did read Conditions of Will though. This was my first Jessa Hastings book, and this one I really like. This is also a standalone, and this is about a woman who can read people very, very well, and she goes back to her family's town when her dad passes away. She does not have a good relationship with her family. She actually fled the country, not necessarily on her own will, but she stayed where she was, which is London, because she just hates her family, and for good reason. You'll find out throughout the story. And so this is really mainly about like familial dynamics, broken relationships, trying to build that, and also healing through trauma. And yes, of course there's romance, but the romance is really kind of a side thing. This is a book that I read with my book club, and we definitely enjoyed it because it's one of those books where you can have so much discourse about it. There are so many things that infuriated me in this book. There's so many things that really stood out to me. She talks about religion. She talks about homophobia in the South, homophobia in general, and how other people's perception of you can dictate how you see yourself. There were so many good topics and discussions in this book. And I think that if you haven't read this yet, this is a great book to read with other people, just because you can learn so much about how they see the world and how you see the world too, unknowingly. Like there were some things where I was like, wow, I really do see the world that way. And she really made me think about my own biases. And I love books that make you think that way. So this one was good. It was not like a 4 or 5 star for me. I think this was a 3.5, or it might have been a 4. I really can't remember. But it's only because this character, she was so unbelievably immature. Like she has so much intelligence, but yet she was always on these two sides of the spectrum. She was either extremely intelligent in a situation or extremely childlike. And it was very hard to like bridge that gap constantly because you never know which kind of side you were going to get from her. And it made her very unpredictable and very annoying to me. I liked her just based on the premise of her personality, but her personality and the work, I was like, oh, girl, you're doing too much sometimes. But overall, I liked the premise of this story. I liked what I got from it overall. It's just sometimes she was very, very insufferable, and her family was so insufferable. If she was insufferable, her family was times 10. Her family was absolutely insane. But again, there are some really good hidden gems in this book. And then of course we have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. This is a book we did read recently, and this was recommended to me by Sarah actually, and it was so beautiful. It has magical realism. It talks about the Harlem Renaissance, and this is Black love. So there are so many beautiful things in this story. I really liked Ricky because she felt like an outlier in her family, and she had to find out her own path for herself. She had to find new friends, new family, and people who accepted her for who she was. And I thought that that was really beautiful, and I feel like that's something that anyone can relate to. Plus there was beautiful like history for the music, there was Black history, and there was just so much like self-discovery in this book that you couldn't help but relate it to your own life. So I really enjoyed this one. Now this is the rest of the romance section. I just want to talk about the decorations. Of course we got these stupid little pumpkins all over the place, but then I also have this lamp. Y'all usually don't see the lamp because I take it down, but because we're doing a bookshelf tour, I'm like, let me show you what I see every day. So this is a little sunset lamp, so it flashes over here to my couch, and it looks really beautiful throughout the day. I'm going to show you. So this is what I usually see when I have my lamp on, and I just love the warm ambience it gives. It's a great reading place. Here are all the books that I've already read, so I put them back here so that I don't miss them if I want to move around, and then I can use this real estate for books that I still need to read. So I have Book Lovers. This is a book that I read when I was a kid. I love this book, so I have it. I have Butcher and Blackbird here. This is a book that I read in high school, If I Stay. This is about a woman who loses her entire family in a car crash, and she is in a coma, and she needs to decide, does she want to pass away, or does she want to still live and fight, knowing that she does not have any family left? It's a really beautiful story. There's also a movie on it. The Sun is Also a Star by Nicole Yoon. Read this, loved this. And The Christmas Fix. This is the only Lucy Score book that did not make me want to die. I actually really enjoyed this one. And then I have Totally Erotica back there. That is a book that was gifted to me by, I think, a thrift store online. This was one of my favorite romance novels. I haven't read it in years, so I don't know if it still stays up there where I have it in my mind, but I do remember thinking this was the best romance book I've ever read. Now that I've read more, I think that Funny Story is definitely on the same level or maybe better. But again, haven't read this in a long time, so don't take my word for it. I think it's so hard to look back on the books that you read when you first started getting back into reading and the ratings that you gave those books, because when you look back, you know for a fact you read books that are better than those. And it's almost like a cringy thing to look back and be like, did you really think that was a 5-star? Like, really? There's so many other books, but you don't know what you don't know. So as you grow and evolve as a reader, naturally your tastes grow and evolve as well. Hopefully that's the case. You're not staying stagnant. So I kind of give myself a little bit of grace when I look back at these books where I'm like, oh my God, this was a 5-star. Like, there's one that sticks out to me in particular. It's Verity by Colleen Hoover. That's the only Colleen Hoover book I've ever read. And I gave that like a 6-star. And it's so embarrassing because that book is very heavily inspired by Rebecca, which is a book that is a classic. It's basically the same storyline and it's kind of word for word the same thing, but it has way better writing, way better storytelling, way better plot development, and I've never read it before. But that's what everyone always says, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have read that first. I wish I would have known better first. But again, you don't know what you don't know. So as I evolve as a reader, I start to look back and kind of reminisce on the things that I used to think was amazing and see how far I've come, because that's a beautiful thing too. Move you over here a little bit. The angles are so hard to do when you're looking at the bookshelf and trying to talk to you. But some other books that I'm super excited to read are these two books. These are by Kennedy Ryan. I read my first Kennedy Ryan book actually with my book club last month. We read Real, which is another book that has to do with the Harlem Renaissance. However, this one is about an actress, Neva, who is playing a character from the Harlem Renaissance, and she falls in love with her director. And that book was really beautiful and a great introduction to Kennedy Ryan because I love how she writes her male main characters. He never wavered. He was so consistent, so stoic, but like a rock in how he supported her. He did not care if she had an attitude. He didn't care what she looked like. He was just always there for her. And that was a really beautiful thing to see, especially because he was a black male main character. And we don't see that enough in books. I feel like we're not represented enough in media in that way, in such a positive light. And it was really beautiful to see from a black author as well. So from that point, I was like, oh, we're definitely going to read more from Kennedy Ryan. It's just the thing is, like, I didn't personally love Neva, the female main character. I just felt like she was trying to be two different people at once. Same thing with the Jessa Hastings book, The Conditions of Will. I felt like on one stance, she was so shy and introspective and so unsure of herself. And then in other parts, I'm like, girl, you were so bold. You're doing the most. And just maybe it's because like I can't relate to her as a person. Maybe I'm putting my own bias out there. But I just felt like it was hard to see her as both of these people. It's either you're one or the other. There's nothing wrong with being bold and like that. But then how are you also this other person? It was very hard to put her in both of these things. But then she was fighting these other battles outside of her acting career, so we got to see her character development in that as well, and that was really beautiful to see. Again, I didn't hate her, but it was just very hard to place her, and maybe it's just me putting people in boxes and having my own stereotypes, so I can accept that too as a reader. Maybe I still need to grow and evolve in that way and stop thinking of people as black and white and notice that there is a gray area. You can be two at once. So looking back, it could also have been me, but just personally, my initial knee-jerk reaction was like, Neva's complicated. I don't know how I feel about her, but I loved Canon, the male main character. Then up here, I still have The Wedding People. This was one of my favorite reads of the year so far. This is literary fiction. It's not necessarily romance. There's a little bit of romance in it, but that's not the point of the book. And I loved her writing in this. This was so phenomenal. If you have not read this book already, you need to read it. I just have this up here now because you'll see in a moment, but my literary fiction rows here, there's no space for anything, and it's because it's my favorite genre, and obviously I have the most books there. Okay, this is when things get a little hairy. We're gonna have to bend down here, and this is one of my literary fiction rows. A lot of the books on this shelf I actually haven't read yet. Some of these books back here, like Taylor Jenkins Reid's Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, The Song of Achilles, Dial A for Aunties, I have read, but most of these I have not. There are a few notable mentions that I did take down so I can go through them with you. The Nickel Boys, this is a book that we recently got and it's actually based on a true story, and I just want to read the back to you because this is what got me. It says, when Elwood Curtis, a black boy growing up in 60s Tallahassee, is unfairly sentenced to a juvenile reformatory called Nickel Academy, he finds himself trapped in a grotesque chamber of horrors. Elwood's only salvation is his friendship with fellow delinquent Turner, which deepens despite Turner's conviction that Elwood is hopelessly naive, that the world is crooked, and that the only way to survive is to scheme and avoid trouble. As the life at the academy becomes even more perilous, the tension between Elwood's ideals and Turner's skepticism leads to a decision with repercussions that will echo down the decades. Based on a real story of a reform school that operated for 111 years and warped the lives of thousands of children, The Nickel Boys is a devastating, driven narrative that showcases a great American novelist writing at the height of his powers. So of course I have to read it. Of course I have to read it. I'm really starting to enjoy the discomfort I feel with heavy books because it's forcing me to grow. I know that that discomfort is me growing an inch taller, a word more wiser, a little more empathetic. So I know that this is going to be one of those books, but I feel like I have to read it. I might not be able to get to it this year, but this is one of those where it's like, no matter what, it's never going to be a good time because it's always going to hurt. So I just have to get to it. I just got to get to it when I get to it. Another notable mention, this is Good Material. This is by the same author who wrote one of my favorite books that we discussed earlier, which is Everything I Know About Love. That was a memoir though. This is actually a fiction novel, and this is about a man who was in love with his girlfriend Jenna. Andy loved his girlfriend Jenna. Jenny loved him too. Loved being the main word here because she does break up with him. Doesn't give him much of a reason why, and he kind of just spirals from there. He starts comparing himself to his friends. He feels like everyone has their life together and he doesn't. He doesn't know when that happened, and he feels like the only way he can get back on track is if he figures out why she broke up with him and fix it so that they can get back together. Obviously that's a very warped view of his future, but that's all he has to hang on to right now. And he also is a stand-up comedian with a failing career, so we get to see the humor in his ideology but also his self-growth, and I think that she does that very, very well. And if it's anything like her memoir, I know this book is going to be good. Another notable mention is Blue Sisters. This is a book by Coco Mellers. This is a book about 3 different sisters. The eldest is a former heroin addict, and now she's a straight-laced lawyer who lives in London with her wife. The other sister, Bonnie, she used to be a boxer, but now she is a bouncer in LA, and she doesn't really like her life. She feels like after that devastating loss, she's kind of lost. And last but not least is Lucky. She is a model in Paris, and the sisters have nothing in common, clearly, but they are also not very close either. And they were driven even further apart when another sister they had, Nikki, passed away unexpectedly. However, a year later, they have to come together whether they like it or not, because they have to prevent the selling of their childhood home in New York City. This book is about grief, loss, and finding love again after grief. And it's very obvious that this book is also about familial connections, bridging the gaps after years of not talking, of miscommunication, of misunderstanding. And I feel like anyone can grow from this book, so I am very excited about this one. Last but certainly not least, this is Demon Copperhead. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for so long, but I am a little intimidated because it's a thick book. It's a thick book, and I know it's one of those books that's very, very heavy as well. This is a book that was inspired by a book by Charles Dickens. I think the book was called David Copperfield. So this book is loosely related to that, but just a modern kind of retelling of that story. This is a book that won a Pulitzer Prize, and it's about this young man who was raised by a single mother in a trailer home. He has no income. He has no real prospects of becoming anything great, but he has this unwilling grit of survival and wanting to be something in life. Now, that doesn't mean his life comes easy just because he has the will to change it. No, he actually has a very difficult life, and we get to see him grow through childhood, through being a delinquent, through going through all of these different schools, through really bad heartbreak, through love, through mistakes and miscommunication, and just trying to grow as a person, trying to find his way in the world. And it just sounds like such a beautiful coming of age story, and every single time I tell people I want to read this, they cannot shut up about this book. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, and this is one for sure. Like, I know I'm saying, oh, I need to read this by the end of the year, I need to read this by the end of the year, but this one I'm not kidding. Like, I actually need to read before the end of the year's out because I've been wanting to read it for so long, and I think we actually got it this year, but I've heard about it before that, and I just know we got to get to it. Maybe in November or even December. I might read this in December. Now, if you've been here for a second, you know how much I love this book, but I'm going to explain it just very quickly. It's about this young girl who lives the same mundane life over and over again. She works at this company, and she's very quirky. She has no social skills. She doesn't really know how to interact with people. And throughout the book, you kind of learn why she is the way that she is, and she starts to find friends. She starts to come out of her shell a little bit, and it's just about her character growth throughout the book. She's gone through so many traumatic events, but of course, throughout the book, you learn how that happened and how it has made her the way that she is now. And it's just such a beautiful story. This is one of those books where I related immensely to the character, and it changed me. It changed me as a person because I just learned so much about her outlook on life, how it kind of resembled my view of life at a certain point, and her growing and evolving past that made me really hopeful of a different future. And I just love that book because it just hit me personally. Outside of that, these are all books I have not read. Most of the shelf I have not read. The ones back here I have. So The Life of Pi I actually haven't read, but I watched the movie, and that was one of those movies that impacted me a lot as a kid. There's this scene where the young boy is on a boat and he's looking up at the stars, but the sea is so clear that you can also see the stars below him. So it just looks like he's floating in space. And for some reason, that image has always stuck with me as a kid. And this book is about a little boy from India who was on this crate with his family and a bunch of zoo animals, or they were going to be zoo animals or something like that. The boat crashes and he's the only survivor with a tiger. And you see him trying to survive with this tiger. It's an incredible story. I highly recommend the movie. Again, I have not watched the movie since I was a kid, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but I remember that movie really touching something in me, and I've always wanted to read the book because of that. Now, these other ones I have read, so The House in the Cerulean Sea, The Guncle, Malibu Rising, Black Cake, a few really good literary fiction books that I liked. I just kept them back here just so that they don't take up a lot of space. I want all the books that I haven't read yet to be here unless I really enjoyed them, then I want them front and center. Now, a few notable mentions on this shelf are these two books here. This first one is a banned book, so naturally we have to read it. This is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Now, I have to read the back for you because I don't know how to explain it. And it says, Christopher John Francis Boone knows all the countries of the world and their capitals and every prime number up to 7,057. He relates well to animals but has no understanding of human emotions. He cannot stand to be touched, and he detests the color yellow. This improbable story of Christopher's quest to investigate the suspicious death of a neighborhood dog makes for one of the most captivating, unusual, and widely heralded novels in recent years. So about a very quirky kid who is trying to solve a mystery in the neighborhood, and I think it's way more than that story leads on, but I don't really know much more about it other than that. I just feel like with this kind of book, I want to go in as blind as possible. I think that I want the book to show me what I'm supposed to take out of it, so that's all I know. And another one is Pictures of You. This is a book about a woman who was in a deadly car accident with her husband. Her husband passes away. However, when she wakes up in the hospital, she has no memory of her husband. She does, however, remember her childhood best friend, Drew Kennedy. And it's a second chance romance. It's about her getting the chance to live life all over again, basically, and what decisions she would make differently, what she pays attention to this time, and who she feels like is the best person in her corner. And it just sounds like a really beautiful story. I think they also have a movie or something. There's some type of motion picture on this, I believe. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's either a movie or a show on this, but I could be wrong. Then over here, I got a new candle. This is when we went to Home Goods and we bought all of that fall decor. I also got myself a candle. This is vanilla and cedarwood. I love a musky smell. I really, really do. I don't know what it is. It just makes me so happy. And this smells so good. I think this is one of the best smelling candles I've ever had. Do you smell it? It's vegan soy wax blend blended with essential oils and poured in California, if you cared. But this smells, it smells like a man. It smells like cologne or something. It smells so good. I love a musky smell. I don't know what it is. And these are some new books that I recently got. I think I bought all of these. And you know what's funny about this shelf? I have almost every single Friedrich Backman book, but I have not read a single one of them. I really need to get to it. It's actually insane. It's really embarrassing at this point. And I have his newest book, My Friends. Still haven't read it. It's crazy. This is a hardback, but I can't even be mad at it because it has such a pretty cover. So we'll get to it when we get to it, I guess. And of course, more pictures of Sarah and I. All right, guys, we're almost there. We're at the last two shelves, finally. Goodness, I told myself I'm not going to talk about every single book, and I still feel like this video is going to be forever, so sorry about that in advance. But hopefully you're learning something. Maybe you're putting new books on your TBR. Maybe there are a few books that you've never heard of and you want to investigate further. That would be my hope from this, so I'm hoping that you're getting something. All right, this shelf here is pretty much a junk drawer once again. There's every genre that you can possibly think of, but the reason why they're all here is because they're all hardcovers, and most of these are from Book of the Month, so these are all my like Book of the Month books, and they're all the same height and stuff, and I like the continuity of that, so I just put them down here because I didn't know where else to put them. And I hate when you have like a hardcover next to a short paperback. I just don't like how it looks like that, so that's why they're all down here. So I have Intermezzo. This is Sally Rooney's newest book. She's the same author who wrote Normal People. That is a book I didn't necessarily like, as you guys know, but I heard that this one's really good. It's definitely about a family who is dealing with loss and grief and trying to grow with each other. So I'm hoping that because it's topics that I definitely like and it's a little outside of toxic romance, maybe I'll enjoy this one a little bit better than Normal People, but we'll see. Again, haven't gotten to it yet. I also have Sunrise on the Reaping. I want to do an entire thing where we reread the Hunger Games series. We just haven't gotten to it, but that is something that is on my wish list either this year or next year. Truthfully speaking, there aren't many books on this shelf that I care to read right away, but there are two notable ones that as soon as I got them, I was like, we definitely need to read them as soon as possible. The first one is a romance. It's called Promise Me Sunshine. This is by Carla Bastone. This is a book about a woman who recently lost her best transfer into Cancer. She doesn't really care about life anymore. She has no joy in her life, and she's trying to pretend like she's okay. And the only person who sees that she's actually not okay is the uncle of the baby she babysits. And he's determined to change her perspective on life. And it's about finding love and joy after loss. So it sounds like it has a lot of thought-provoking commentary in this book, and I love books that make you think a little bit more. Last but not least is my first Olivia Blake book. This is Gifted and Talented. This is about 3 different siblings who are vying for the same job after their dad passes away. He is the CEO of this huge biotech company, and after he passes away, each sibling really wants this job and have their own reasons and motivations for being as competitive as they are to get this job. So we watch this competition play out amongst these siblings, and it has a touch of magical realism in it. So it sounds really interesting. I've never heard of a premise of a book like that, and I think that this would be a fun way to get into Olivia Blake books. We made it to the final shelf, guys. Now this shelf is my thrillers and horror books. I have all of my Stephen King back here, so let me just show you really quickly. These are the books that I've actually read or I plan on reading this year. We have What Moves the Dead and What Feasts at Night. Again, this is the gothic level art, the eerie, uncanny descriptions of nature that I love in books. This is my kind of horror. I'm realizing I don't really like gore, and if there is gore, I want it to be based in like nature or to have this gothic theme about it. So I think that's why I love T. Kingfisher so much. I haven't read the second book to What Moves the Dead, which is What Feasts at Night, but I do plan on reading this. Then the rest of these are just my Stephen King books. So I have Misery, Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining, and I also have a few other ones that I've read. So I have Strange Sally Diamond. That is a very insane book, but I really enjoyed it. It's not like anything that I've ever read before. It's about this woman who's in her 30s who recently loses her last living parent. She was actually raised by these scientists or doctors who took her out of a very bad situation when she was young, but she has no memory from the time before they adopted her. And throughout this story, she starts to gain her memory back after this tragedy. And her father leaves some notes for her that helps her backtrack and look at her life as a whole. It's a really beautiful story of growth and trauma and just very scary human evil and the way that it manifests throughout generations. It's a very uncanny book. I love the book up into the ending, but this is another book that I read with my book club, and we just all hated the ending. It felt very rushed, and it just felt like it left us with more questions than answers. But outside of that, I really enjoyed this book. I would recommend the audiobook for that book just because they did a great job with the voice acting. 2 other favorites is Carmilla. This is like the OG vampire book, but this is a book about lesbian vampires, and it is so cool. This is what I mean by gothic, uncanny, just very cool art. It's very Tim Burton-esque, and there's illustrations throughout the book. Look at how beautiful. I love art like this. Look at that, like stunning, literally stunning. I cannot get over it. This was one of my favorite reads last year. It's very short, it's easy to read. I think this is a great thing to add to your fall list if you haven't already started getting into the darker books that you want to read this year. And then another one I also really enjoyed was The Couple Next Door. This is about a couple who just had a baby. They go over to their neighbor's house for a party just to get out of the house. And when they come back, something has happened and it's life altering, it's life shattering, and they are terrified and they're just trying to figure out what happened, and you follow that story. You cannot trust anyone in this book, and it's so fast paced. I literally finished this in a day or maybe a day and a half, and I loved this story. It's very, very, very good. I think it's an easy thriller you can get out of the way this fall if you're looking for some. Another one that I really enjoyed that I talk about all the time is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. This is a cozy mystery about an Asian grandmother who's trying to figure out who died in her tea shop, and she's going through all the suspects, accusing them of doing it, and actually getting to know these people a little bit more. It's so cute. She's so nosy. She's so obnoxious, but you can't help but love her. And this is a book that I think about very often. I love her so much. She reminds me a lot of my grandmother. Then, of course, we have a few classics. So we have Crime and Punishment. We also have a few Sherlock Holmes stories here, and then all of these are just books I have not gotten to yet. I'm realizing I'm not much of a thriller or horror person. Every time fall comes around, I usually gravitate towards fantasy or dark academia instead of thrillers, but I'm hoping that this year maybe we can turn the tides. I just have no like desire to. I have no natural urge to be like, oh, I want to be scared today, or I want to read a fast-paced thriller. So I'm hoping that eventually I'll get to that. But right now, actually, I'm reading a thriller. It's called Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Cosby, and this one is holding my attention. I'm really enjoying it, but I don't have the physical book. It is on my Kindle, and this book is about two grieving fathers who lost their sons to a horrific, senseless death. They were shot and killed, and their two sons were actually married together, but these two fathers are raging homophobes, and they never really had close connections with their sons because of that, and so they deal with this immense grief as well as guilt after their sons pass away, and the cops are not really doing much to figure out what happened. So these two grieving fathers come together. My battery died, but these two grieving fathers come together to figure out what happened to their children and to get their own type of justice. It is keeping my attention so far. I am slowly but surely falling in love with these two fathers, and not only are they homophobic, but they were two fathers who went to prison. They've had pretty hard lives, and not only that, they're interracial. So one father is black, one father is white, and so we get to see that additional layer of complexity because they see the world obviously very different from each other, and they get to know each other based off of that as well. So they're slowly starting to become friends as they try to figure out and navigate their grief and figure out what happened to their children, and it is wonderful. I've never read a story like this, and it's keeping my attention, even though, again, I'm not really a thrillers person. All right, and that is everything. Thank y'all so much for going through my entire bookshelf with me. I feel like that was so much fun. It was a lot scarier in my head than actually going through it. It still felt like it took forever, but I had a lot of fun talking about all my books, and that's always like the best thing ever. So if there are any books that you found on my bookshelf that you're intrigued by, that you are interested in, let me know in the comments below. If there's any book that you saw that you think that I should read coming up soon, or if there's a book that you would recommend to me based off of what you saw on my bookshelf, please again let me know in the comments. I'm constantly looking for my next 5-star, so that would be much appreciated. Again, thank you so much for your time. I love y'all so much, and I'll see you in the next video.